South Wales.
Well, let's talk about farms. If you think about you and your siblings, if you've got brothers and sisters, or a brother and a sister, or just one or the other, and imagine you both inherited something big, or you all inherited something big. Think about what you all do. Are you all the same? Are you all different? What would you do? Would you be in agreement, or would there be a big schism down the middle of the family trying to decide what to do with that big thing that you inherited? Now imagine that it's the family farm. Yes. As perfectly beautiful as the, sounds like the Muppets version of Succession is, passing on a family farm can be so fraught, especially when we're talking about something as big and as valuable as a family farm with so much wrapped up in it. Tradition, history, as well as the money. And farm succession is complicated. It's full of competing interests and emotions, so many moving parts. So proper planning is important. If you've ever been involved in a family farm being passed on, I'd love to hear from you. Or maybe you're a farmer who's just starting to get your affairs in order. 1300 973 300. You can text 0467 922 684. Maybe you've met my next guest, someone who knows a lot about farm succession planning. Maggie Orman is the principal at Orman Solicitors in Wagga Wagga and joins us now. Hello there.
Hello, Lindsay.
I can only imagine how fraught. Having a family farm would be such a beautiful thing, but passing it on, that nervousness and anxiety of passing it on to the younger generation. In the worst case scenario, what sort of things can happen if farm succession isn't properly planned?
Well, the farm can be lost. I think that's the worst case scenario, really, but it can often go into the wrong hands. We can have siblings fighting each other. The matter can end up in court. The whole farm could actually be spent on legal fees as well. We've seen that in cases too where siblings just can't agree.
So losing the farm entirely just down to the legal fees?
It has happened in cases.
Wow. Jeff has said succession planning is the biggest problem faced by those on the land other than the weather. There you go. So that is good to remember, especially on a weekend like ours. Having all the siblings on the title would be the worst thing anyone could do, says Jeff. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what needs to happen is that whoever has the farm, and generally that's the older generation, what they need to do is they need to begin with the end in mind. So they have to actually start planning. They have to look at all of the siblings or all of their children that are involved, and if in the event that they're married or not married, and they need to start planning for the future. But what they need to do is they need to take their time in coming up with the plan. They need to involve all of the parties, and they need to really communicate well and come up with a plan that's going to satisfy everybody and keep everybody happy. And we really want the farms being passed on to the next generation. We don't want them being sold. We want them remaining in families, and we want the next generation of farmers coming on. And with the farmers, actually, with the younger generation inheriting the properties or then being passed on to them, we don't want them being passed over too early because there's a lot of knowledge with the older generation. I think that we want both generations working collectively together in order to come out with the best outcome, because the older generation can pass on so much information to the younger generation. So you don't want to do it too early, but you don't want to do it too late either.
And you want to start planning early as well, but maybe not hand over the farms too early.
That's right. And if we look at the case of, and I know that they're not farmers, but if you look at succession and if you look at the case of the late Queen Elizabeth, she was 96 years of age when she died, and then Prince Charles took over, but he was actually 73 years when he took over. And now he's quite ill, and who knows what's going to happen. So his reign might be quite short. So I think that it's a good idea for farms to be passed over at the correct time. So not too early, but not too late either.
Would you say more of a Danish model with Queen Margrethe passing on to the King of Denmark, Frederik, and Queen Mary of Denmark, Mary Donaldson?
Yes, that's right.
Rather than the British model.
Yeah, I think that it works much better because Queen Margrethe is actually there in order to assist Frederik if in the event that he has any issues. And that works in farming as well because, the younger generation also have a lot of new knowledge that they want to implement on farms, but they can also, if in the event that the farms pass over at the right time, they can rely on that older generation for their knowledge as well.
I love how we've gone from the Succession TV show to The Crown in one conversation, Maggie.
That's right. That's right.
What happens though if one of the children loves the farm, that is their career, they could take it over, they could take it on, but the other siblings, they want to sell it. We're talking about someone losing their career there. What are the options there? How does that get sorted out?
Oh, well, there are many options. Like if you've had, for example, if you've had a young farmer who's been working on the farm for, say, 15 to 20 years, they might have been working for a minimal amount of wages in order to gain an inheritance and to have succession take place. But what you've got to also do is look at the siblings and say, well, what contribution have they actually made to the farm, and should their contribution be equal to that contribution of the one that stayed on the farm? But there are a million ways to do this, and what we've got to do is look at what the asset is worth and what the non-farming siblings should actually inherit and how much they should inherit and when that should happen. So we can look at all sorts of different deals, and every farming succession plan is different.
Speaking of Maggie Orman from Orman Solicitors in Wagga Wagga, you put on these farm succession workshops where you do talk through this with people. You recently had one in Wagga Wagga. What do you offer in these sessions, and what is it like? What are you hearing from people?
Oh, it was fantastic. We just held one recently, and it was great to hear from so many farmers that, they want to get into it, they need to get into it, but they're quite hesitant. They're worried about the future. They're worried about the reaction from other family members and from siblings, and they're very concerned about when the right time is in order to pass the farm over. But what we offer is a holistic approach to it. So we look at the financial aspects of it all, and I'm working in conjunction with two other people in order to assist with the accountancy side of things and also some wealth planning. So we can look at all sorts of different models that assist farmers in order to the older generation transferring to the younger generation.
Well, I guess that's one of the issues, is that it is an ageing industry. The average age of a farmer is 63 years old. The younger generation, I guess, by look of those stats, aren't that into it. How hard is it to sell a farm if that's the path a family wants to go down?
Well, I don't think that farms are that difficult to sell these days, but I think that it's quite sad for a farm to be sold if it's been in the family for a long period of time. But it depends on what the family wants to do. So if you've got no children that are actually interested in farming, the best decision may be to sell it and for wealth to be distributed or for wealth to be invested in other areas. So it can be an option, but I think that the better option is if someone is particularly interested in farming, if they can potentially keep it and other siblings can be paid out in other ways.
Guy in Newcastle is a surveyor. Thanks, Guy, for texting in. Hello, Newcastle. And have been involved in helping farmers with succession planning. It's really important to get equitable boundaries of land going to multiple kids so that they have their own land. Also really important to sort out issues like water and access, obviously, on those lands. I mean, that's an idea too, isn't it? Of course, splitting the farm up, Solomon and the baby style.
That's right. You can split it up, but I think in looking at it, if in the event that you've, say, for example, got three siblings and one sibling is interested in farming and the other two aren't, in order to split up land, that may not be very equitable for the one that's continuing on farming in order to farm, because the smaller farms get, the less profitable they're going to be. So that's a difficulty. But if the three siblings were farming, that may well be the way to go.